Good morning, everyone. I'm just starting the webinar today. Thanks everyone for coming along. I'm just going to let everyone connect. But in the meantime, say hi. Drop your name in the chat, introduce yourself with your name and your organization. Just make sure that you click all attendees instead of panelists so that everyone can see it. So pop your name in the chat, say hello as you join. And while people are connecting, I am just going to start because I have so much stuff to go through today. So I'm going to start with some quick little logistics. Thanks everyone for saying hi in the chat. It's really great to see. Good to see so many people here this morning. Thank you for coming along. By way of a quick introduction from me, that's me. My name's Tom. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Raisely. We're the all-in-one fundraising platform for ambitious organizations. We help you raise money online by making it quick and easy to set up a high-performing campaign without being a digital pro. Previously, I was head of digital working on large international campaigns at Amnesty and the UN and World Vision. And I'm here because you people joining the webinar right now are fighting for a better world and you need the best technology to back your work. So that's why we're here. That's what we do. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we're going to run this. I recognize in the marketing for this webinar, I said no slides and I've gone ahead and made slides. So I'm sorry about that, but there was some stuff that I thought might be clearer in slide form. I promise there aren't too many slides and we'll be actually diving into Raisely really soon. But we're going to try to keep this as interactive as possible with the folks online. So we're going to do about 15 minutes of run through and then I'm going to pause for questions and then we're going to rinse and repeat. I've got a few people from the team online as well. So if you do have any questions, then they might be able to answer them kind of live. And then I'm going to pause and we'll pull out some questions as well that we can answer. The features to use are the Q&A feature in Zoom, along with you can raise your hand if you'd like to actually speak your question. If you set up with a mic and you want to kind of verbalize your question and we can chat about it, that's also cool too. So they're the two features to use. Feel free to keep posting those questions kind of as I'm talking. I can see them on the side of my screen here. So if there's anything that's like, oh, that's totally not clear, I will try to correct it as we go. But otherwise, we'll have those kind of regular pauses to work through everything. So that sounds good. For anyone new here, just jump in the chat, go all attendees, say hello, and where you're from. Some quick logistics. We are recording this call. And so the recording will be available after the webinar. I can also share the slides as well. I can see that coming in as a question there. Happy to do that. The slides are pretty basic. Most of the stuff will be in the recording. So yeah, we will record it and it will be ready to go. If you like, feel free to follow along. If you have a Raisely account already and you learn best by doing, then if you would like to give it a go and follow along with everything that we're doing today, feel free. I will go quickly because there's so much to cover, but hopefully you're kind of able to get the gist of everything and can click along with me. There's nothing kind of special that I'm showing in my Raisely account that you can't do in yours. Alrighty, what we're going to cover. We have three parts to the webinar. They kind of go in order of size. So the first thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a high-performing appeal page today. We're going to be starting with some basics on page design and UX theory. We're then going to be going from rookie to expert on the Raisely page builder in about 15 minutes. And we're going to be talking about optimizing for mobile. We'll then pause, have some questions, give people a chance to take a breather if you need. And then we're going to dive into personalization and pearls or personalized URLs. We're going to talk about the basics, what that is, why we personalize, how to prepare your page for personalization, and how you actually send out a personalized appeal email to folks. And then the third part, which is probably just a short part at the end, is around match giving. So often for an appeal or a giving day, we want to include matched giving to some extent. And we're going to talk about kind of what is matched giving, why you do it, how we set it up within Raisely, and how we promote that on your landing page. The idea of today's session is that you're able to come out knowing more about Raisely, you're able to build more campaigns on the platform itself, you're more confident with using the tools, but you're also able to set up an appeal that is really great looking, is personalized, is optimized, and you can kind of do that end to end. So hopefully, even if you're not planning an appeal in the future, this is helpful training for you in using the product. If you are, then maybe there's some tips in here that you'll be able to incorporate into that appeal. Hopefully that all sounds good. Quick points are, please ask questions or tell me I'm going too fast or too slow in the chat or in the Q&A. Please raise your hand in those question sections if you'd like to ask your question verbally. Otherwise, feel free to chat's fine. We're going to dive in. Part 1, page building. Now, we are building an appeal or a giving day page. So by this, the most relevant example for us at the moment in terms of this webinar is probably an end of financial year appeal. We want to structure that page in a way which is going to be able to tell a really clear message to our supporters. So we're going to come in with a clear key message at the top of the page. We're going to pull in an eye-catching image. We're going to have a call to action there, all of those kinds of things. So we're going to create this page together live today. We're going to be doing that on the webinar. We're going to be doing that inside Razely. But the first step for any page or any appeal that we're talking about here, beyond the stuff that you're all really experts at in terms of, well, what is the actual message of my appeal, or what is my copy, or what is the story and the theory of change that I'm putting to my donors? Once we've kind of established that, well, then how do we communicate that online, or how do we communicate that on the web? And that's what we're trying to kind of go through today as a bit of an example. I have done some awful drawings, so I'm sorry for my art. I am much better when I have a computer and not a pencil. In this case, a pencil and an iPad. So sorry for the artistic merit in these, but hopefully they kind of get the picture across in terms of the planning that we've done for our page. We are starting with the top section here. And in that top section, there are really 4 key ingredients that we want to include in this kind of first section that we see when we're launching our appeal page. If you look at any kind of landing pages, whether that's a donation page or a landing page for a product or for something else that you might be signing up for, then you'll often see these 4 ingredients. And they are a clear key message, that's to grab your attention, an eye-catching image or something to engage you with the page. In our case, a donation form, essentially a call to action. What is the most important thing that we're doing? In which case is a donation form. And then we're going to back that up with supporting messages or social proof to encourage people to donate, to say it's okay to donate. That's the top of our page. And we're going to structure it in that kind of way. Now, why this kind of layout? And you see I've kind of put my key message over here, and I've got my person, my donation form, my progress bar. I want to introduce a really simple concept when you're thinking about landing page design called the Z pattern. And that is where I overlay a Z on my page. And that tracks the natural eye movement that we're looking at as we scan the page. And you'll kind of notice this as soon as you know it. Every time you're looking at a page, you'll be like, oh yeah, my eye did the Z thing. It's a really kind of common pattern. Obviously, we lead in Western cultures, we read left to right, and that's essentially what we're doing here when scanning the page. So I've overlaid a Z on the page, and essentially that is how I want to build my case for someone to donate at the top of this page here. So I've got my key message, got my key message, and they're going to be engaged by that image. I'm going to go down to my donation form, and then I'm going to go over to my progress bar. Now, obviously, the Z pattern really only works on desktop. On mobile, we're not going to have that same pattern, but the order of priority kind of still makes sense. All right. What about the rest of the page? So I've kind of talked about the top, and I've talked about that first section. That's all mostly above the fold. The fold is this imaginary line that we have that is essentially the bottom of most laptop screens or the bottom of most phone screens when I load the page. Now, the fold is a bit of a fallacy in that, like, people always scroll, but you do want enough information at the top of the fold in order to capture their attention and engage them to scroll down. So not everything needs to be jammed at the top there, but we do need to have some information there. In terms of the page then, well, we need to tell a bit of a narrative on that page. A narrative is a really simple story structure. And I've kind of translated it to a bit of a structure for our page here to work on today. And that is that we start with an intro, we back up that, and that intro is a story of our organization or what this appeal is doing. We then apply back that up with some statistics to build trust. We then talk about the impact that you can have as a donor as a resolution. I'm then going to back that up with some social proof. Other people are doing it. It's okay to participate. We're going to have a call to action and a secondary donation form down the bottom. And then if I still get far enough and I'm still not convinced, then we want to add in a bit of risk reduction. So that can be, oh, will my donation go to the right cause? Will I, what impact am I going to have? Those kinds of things. Is it safe to donate? So that's the formula we're going to use. All right, we're going to get started. Before this session, I have started with our donation appeal template, which you can use within Raisely. You can sign up. It's just called Donation Appeal. I've set up my brand colors. We're just using a fake organization that we've made up today, a youth empowerment organization called Youth Leadership. So I've set up my brand colors, my fonts, and my logo, consistent with my style guide. If you're not sure how to do that, it's just in the design settings of Raisely. We've got some articles online to help you do it. I've uploaded a couple of images to my media library, so they're ready to go. And I've also planned out a basic structure for my page. All right, I'm in my Raisely account here. We're going to dive into the editor. I'm going to go pages. We're going to go home. All right, quick, I'm going from 0 to hero here. So quick basics of the editor. If you've used Raisely before, you might already know this. It'll be 2 minutes. This is our Raisely editor. It is a page builder. This version of the page is very similar to the actual live version of the page, which I can get to by clicking the little I button at the top here, which looks like this. The page editor is made up of rows and blocks. The metaphor we often use is a bookshelf with books in it. The rows are the bookshelf, the blocks are the books. You can see on this page here, this is my default template. I have different rows, and inside those different rows are different blocks. Blocks of things like images, text, headings, donation forms, progress bars, all of those kinds of things. I use this plus button to add things to my page. I can either add a row, and I can then pick the columns that I want that row to have, or I can add a block. And there are some common blocks at the start, or I can search for a block, as you'll see me doing a lot today. Each of these rows has settings. So whenever I hover over a row, I get a little gray cog at the top here. And then I can customize things like the text color, the background image, column settings, and advanced settings, which are mostly spacing for different screen sizes. I also have blocks. When I hover over a block, I get a blue outline and blue settings. So this is the common kind of way to distinguish them: row, gray settings, block, blue settings. Inside a block, I get options related to that block. So this is a heading. I can change the heading size. I also get some style options like color and background. And I get some advanced options like margins, again, for different breakpoints. So they're the basics of building a page. That's kind of how a page is constructed, and we're going to now go through and actually build the page. Now, remember from my slides that this is our default template, and it works well, but we're here to learn about page building, and we're going to build a fancier page. So we're going to actually customize this quite heavily and build a wholly unique page to see how it all works. All right, to do that, and you'll remember if we go back to our little thing here as a reference, we've got our key message and our header, donation form, and then some supporting information. So I'm going to come in. We're going to quickly change our key message here. So it's a bit smaller. I've kind of picked this nice chunky heading font. Now we don't have a progress bar here. So I'm just kind of clearing all of this out so that we're free to build this page. You can see I'm deleting those blocks. So we've got our key message, we've got our background. I'm going to give this a little bit more space. The best design tip that I can give you is that you often want more space than you think. So I'm just going to boost that space up. These fonts are coming in from Google Fonts. So when I've set up my brand design for this campaign, which I did before the webinar, I've just picked some Google Fonts for my campaign. Obviously, your organization probably has a style guide that you're ready to go with. So I've got this image here, and the good thing about this image is that it has negative space. So I've got the girl over on the right-hand side, and that kind of draws my eye in, but I've got some space on the left-hand side for my text to sit. But the image is a bit faded out at the moment. So what I'm actually going to do is change this background to be gray, because that works a bit better with my color scheme, still a bit dark. So I'm going to change the fade direction to be a left gradient. What we want to do here is we want to make sure that the text is still legible on the image, but that we're not darkening the image too much, and I'm still drawn into the page and able to engage with the face on the page. I can set a focal point on this image to make sure that the girl's face always stays in focus. So already I'm pretty happy with that. I've got a bit of a gradient over here to darken the image. I can read my text. That's all looking pretty good. I'm going to add in another heading through a block. And I want this to be a call to action. So I've got my my key message, and then I'm going to put in a bit of a call to action here. I'm going to make this white. I'm going to say, donate to our urgent appeal. So we need to always be really explicit and ask people what we actually want them to do. Now I want to separate this from our main heading a little bit. So I'm going to go into my block settings here, and I'm going to give it a bit of a margin. And that's to make this two separate thoughts. Now, this might look a bit odd so far, but it's all going to come together in a second, I can promise. All right, so this is my top banner. I've got my key image, I've got my, my photo, my key message, that's all looking pretty good. The next thing I want to do is add that second section that I showed you in my little sketch here, the donation form and my backup information. I'm going to do that by adding a new row. I'm going to give this a bit of a background color. I kind of have a faded out blue color that I'm going with my site to kind of match the colors in this image. So you can see I've got my two rows here, and I'm going to add a donation form in. I did set up my dollar handles before this webinar too. I will show you how to do that a little bit later on, but you can see I've got some dollar amounts in there with some descriptions. So I've got my donation form, and I'm also going to add the other ingredients to the side of the page. And I might want to include, say, like a so far we've raised, to tell people this is that element of social proof. I make that a gray. Oh, that's the wrong color. There we go. And then I can add a progress bar below that. So by showing how much we've raised, it gives people a clear indication, well, that people are actually donating to this campaign. It's going to be okay for me too. We've got social proof further down the page in terms of donation stream that we might add. But for now, this will probably do at the top. I'm going to make this progress bar nice and big. And I think that to make that stand out a little bit more, I can also give it a background color under style and give it a bit of padding. So that's now standing out a little bit more. I could then have another section below this to talk about a bit of a secondary message. So I'm going to add another heading in here. I'll give it a bit of a margin at the top. You'll see I'm often looking at the space of my page. Now this heading, I'm going to make it a smaller heading. I've got a heading 5, which I kind of made as like a little subheading style. We're going to go, we could do something about our program. Me writing copy live on a webinar is probably not going to go super well, but we're giving it a go. There we go. So there's my key message. So now you can see I've got all of the ingredients here ready to go, but it's not visually interesting enough at the moment. A great trick to make things more visually interesting is to come into the block settings here. I'm going to go to advanced. I'm going to actually overlap. And what this is going to do is join these two sections together. So I'm going to bring it right up. You can see I'm moving it up there under my donate to my urgent appeal. All right. So now I've got that first lockup done, which is when I land on this page, I'm going to hit save. I'm going to go actually and you can look at this on your own computer if you want to. It's webinar-template.raisely.com. I've got my campaign there. I've got my image. That's all looking really good. And I'm pretty happy with that lockup. So that's all looking good. And you can see if I'm scanning this page, I go from my text here to the girl's eyes, down to the donation form, over to the social proof. All right, I'm going to quickly pause just to make sure there's nothing that I can address here. Claire's pulled out obviously some themes around the background space. The background space, I went to the row settings. So I hovered over the row and I clicked on the gray cog at the top. And then I went to advanced and then I changed vertical spacing here. So I can do that on any row. It's always a really common thing to do. Raisely has a default about 60 pixels. I often actually go a bit above that, which you'll see later on. All right, I'm going to continue down the page. So this is the rest of the page that we're going to build for our appeal here. And we're going to be starting with an intro, some stats, and some impact. For the intro, where am I going? I'm here. Now I'm just going to keep adding rows, and then we'll delete this kind of content from the template a little bit later on, so we don't actually need it too much. First thing, I'm going to start with something about our mission. So if I'm, say, sending people to this page from Facebook, then they might not know a lot about my organization yet. They've only seen an ad copy, or maybe they've engaged with me before in terms of a petition, but they're not going to know loads. So I want to actually introduce them. I'm going to add a row. Now, generally when I'm adding text, I don't want to include this big row here because it gets hard to read. So I choose this kind of narrow option. That's why I've got it there. If you're adding text to your page without an image or without anything else, always choose this because it's always going to be a lot easier to read. There's kind of a rule that you don't want text to be longer than about 80 characters. And it's kind of like if you're reading a book, you don't want to read an A4 book, you want to read like a little book because it's easy for your eye to scan across that text. Here I'm going to talk about our mission. So I'm going to introduce us to our organization. So I'm going to give it a bit of a heading of our mission. You'll often see this pattern on websites where you have a small introductory heading, which is often really clear, and then you have a bit of a longer kind of inspirational heading. And I'm going to do that here. So our mission, and then I'm going to actually answer that with my next heading, which will be something like creating brighter futures for youth. I'm going to center that. Actually, what I might do is actually pull in our mission statement here. So again, I'm going to pull that into a heading. I'm going to blocks, heading, and there's my mission statement. Now, when I was setting up my heading styles, I kind of had a nice style here that had a bit of a serif font. Now, font is a great way to add some interest to your designs. You can see here we've got this chunky one, we've got this kind of nice basic one, and then we've got this serif one, which is a bit more refined. And I can make that italic, and that's kind of looking nice. Makes the page a bit more interesting, even though I'm not doing anything fancy here. Again, these are just Google fonts. So I've put out my mission, and like most rows on this page, I'm going to give it more space. It's feeling a bit better. All right, now I want to talk about my organization. And a great way to do that is to do a 2-column row. You kind of see that we're generally using 2-column rows here because it makes things nice side by side. On the right-hand side, I'm going to add an image. I'm going to choose an image tile because I can control the aspect ratio of that image a little bit better. I'm going to insert that in there. Now, I don't need an image tile lets you kind of link out to something so you can have text on top of it or a link. I don't need either of those for this, but I do have an image that I was prepared earlier. It's kind of image of this young person. It's nice and tall. And you can see how that fills out the space, makes it really bright and ready to go. I'm then going to put some text over here on the side. Now, real trick is that I have this heading here already. I want to actually use that down here. So I'm going to duplicate it. It means it comes with my styling already, and I can change my text to about us. I then want to insert another heading, which gives me my kind of answer. And then I could launch into my actual description to try to convince people of my appeal. Now, one thing I'm doing is I'm noticing there's a bit of space up here. So I'm just going to take that space out so that it's a bit more even. I'm going to pull in my text. I'm going to go to a block. I'm going to insert a paragraph. And I've just got some Latin here that I'm going to paste in. I might want to pull out some bullets of the different programs that we do, for example. So that's looking good. I'm going to select those and make those bullets. There we go. And a common thing that I'm sure you all know for your donation pages is I need donation buttons right through the page. So I'm going to insert a call to action button here, and I'm going to continue to do this further down the page. I'm just going to jump out of those bullets. There we go. I'm going to insert some buttons. Now, I don't need 2 buttons. Often on an appeal, you only want to have 1 call to action. Obviously, then you don't get people having to decide between the different call to actions, or there's a way out when they act. When obviously, you just want people to donate. So I'm going to make that a donate now. I'm going to change my button to, I think it's my secondary style, is kind of a bit faded out and ready to go. And anywhere in a Raise Lead campaign, I do #donate, and that'll link me to a donation form on the page. I'm going to remove that second button, and I've got my About Us section ready to go there. That's looking pretty good. I'm happy with that. Now I'm going to add a row just below that to give it a bit more space. You can just add rows as spaces. There's actually a block called Spacer, which has incredible functionality of adding space. There we go. Reduce that a little bit. You can see kind of how I'm building this page to give it a bit of structure, but that, you know, it's already looking pretty good. Now, the next thing that I had in my list is some stats. Stats are a great way to build authority on the page. And I kind of want them to stand out. You'll see in that like little sketch I did, I've made them a nice kind of red color, and I want to do that here too. So I'm going to add a row, and we've got 3 stats that we're going to back this campaign up with. So I'm inserting a 3-column row. And the first thing I'm going to do is give it a background color. And I've got this vibrant red color that I can use to help things stand out. Now for stats, the really easy way to put them into the page is actually to use headings. So I'm adding some blocks. I'm going to insert a heading. And that heading is the same color as the background, which is why I can't see it. But I'm going to pick my chunky heading 2 style, and I'm going to change the color to white. And you'll see kind of how this works in a second. So I might say there are 475 is our first stat. And then I'm going to put a stat below that, or a description below that, sorry. I'm going to choose my heading 5 in this case, which I've styled to be kind of nice and small. I can kind of then describe the stat. And you can see that's a great way to lay out these stats. I'm then going to copy that across my different rows. So I'm going to duplicate and duplicate again. Provide a different one. You can see I'm now backing up the impact of my program in a really tangible way. And for this one, let's actually show the amount raised. We'll go into this in a little bit more in the personalization section of today. But if I type a hash, I get an autocomplete. And I should be able to type a total. Oh, of course, this worked when I showed it to you when I was testing this yesterday. That's all good. So I might include my campaign total amount raised here, which you can normally select on that autocomplete, but I'm just going to put in a number for now. There we go. So you can see I've got that stats section there ready to go. Now I'm going to speed through the rest because I've kind of started to show you how we build these pages out together. And I did cheat. I did do a few more before the webinar to kind of get us through this a little bit quicker. But the next section I want to include is going to be, well, how do I help? What's the resolution to my story here? I've kind of laid it out here. Well, how I help is I donate. And a great way to do that, and I've got a template that I made a little bit earlier, which was this one here. How my donation will help. So this is the row template I've used. Sorry, the row configuration I've used is this one here, where I've got a heading and a footer, and then I've got my different dollar handles. And you can see I've done a similar thing to the stats, where I've given it a different dollar handle, and I've then mentioned kind of what that actually would achieve. And this is kind of how I can help with a call to action down the bottom there. That's looking really, really nice and easy. If I go further down the page, I then had some social proof. Well, other people are donating, and you can see I've already got this in the template here, but I want it to stand out more. So I'm going to give that vibrant background color. And of course, I can't read that text anymore, so I'm going to make that text white. And I'm going to give it a little bit more space so that it stands out. So now I've got my nice stream of donations ticking across the bottom there. Now I have my call to action, and this template has that already. So I'm going to delete these rows, and I've got this section here called Chip In Today. It's got a bit of an introduction. It's got my donation form. I am just going to put some text at the bottom to help with risk reduction. And this text could say something like, a thank you. Your generosity is vital. Thank you for your contribution. Just to make people to reinforce that it's a good thing that they're doing, that they're donating. So I've got that section there. I'm going to change the background color just to a kind of a bit more of a gray. I can see how do you add the stream of donations. I will just show you that really quickly. If I delete that from there, it is a block. So everything on this page is a block. I search for donation stream, and I can pop that in. By default, it's a vertical stream, but I can change that to a horizontal stream if I want to, just by going into those block settings and then going horizontally. And there we get my little donation ticker. I can show more donations if I want to. I can show, for example, 20, which has really sped things up, 10, etc. All right, now the final part of my page, and again, I have this one pre-prepared, is some risk reduction at the end. So I'm going to add a new row to the page. And I'm going to add my why heading, and I'll explain this one once it goes in, and my why reasons. So here again, I've added a section which is why give to us. And this is what I mean by risk reduction, is why give to us. Well, I want to see the impact my gift makes. I'm going to know where my money goes, and I'm going to make a difference. And so you could talk about security here. You could talk about my organization and the impact we've had, or that you'd know that your donation is going to be going towards a good thing. So that's just a way to say, like, I've got right to the bottom. I haven't donated yet. I probably need a little bit more convincing. So that's how we're going to do that together, by showing a few points, linking out to potentially some pages on your website. I'm going to save this, and let's have a look at how it's all looking. Now, we don't have any donations yet, so a $0 raised. I can see I've got that page kind of looking really nice. I've got my about us, the kind of start of our story, kids in our programs, how your donation will help, my ticker of donations. There's no donations yet, but that'll be flowing across there. I can chip in today, why give to us, with our footer at the end. So you can see in 20 minutes, we've built a page that looks pretty different to that appeal. And it was nice and easy to do. I didn't need to do any code. I didn't need to pull in anything. Obviously, I had a brand style set up there, and I had some images that looked great. But really all I've done is I planned out my page, and things are looking pretty nice from there. Now, I am going to pause for questions in 1 second. The final thing I want to show you is how I actually make this look good on mobile. To look at this site on mobile, I click on the little desktop icon at the top here, and I go to a mobile view. Now, this shrinks it down to the average kind of width for a mobile. And you can see that already it's looking pretty good. Razorly does a pretty good job of making your site work on mobile automatically. And so you don't need to like redesign everything, but often you would need to tweak things or change spacing in particular. So you can see here that I've got my bar. And what I want to do for mobile is I want to actually connect this section, the donation form, up with the top section, so it really flows into the page. And so how I'm going to do that is I'm going to go to my donation form. I'm going to add a bit of margin to the bottom. And this is just to make some space. And you'll see what for in a second. And then I'm going to get my donation form. I'm going to bring it up. You can kind of see what I'm doing there. Now that's lined up. Now what that's done is overlaying the image, and that just connects it all together so that I load this page initially and I can see there's something below the fold. So I'm going to scroll down and have my donation form there. Now we do, in our template and in this one, we do try to keep the donation form high up the page. We did a test a little while back now where we put a donation form high up the page, and we did a donation form lower down with a donate button. And the version of the page with the donation form at the top converted at about 20% more than the one with the donation form down the bottom. So that's kind of a best practice that we try to pull into all of our designs, and we've certainly seen it's worked. Now I'm looking at my page, and generally it's okay, but I'm like, oh, the spacing isn't too good. So that's where I'm going to come in here. I'm going to click on my different blocks that need spacing. I'm going to go to advanced, and you'll see that it's pre-selected the mobile breakpoint, the mobile views here. So this means that I can have my desktop, my tablet, and my mobile sizing, and I'm just tweaking things for mobile now. The content is all the same, but I'm just changing the spacing. And generally what I'm doing with a mobile design is I'm just shrinking the space. Obviously on desktop, we want more space. There's plenty of screen real estate that we can use. On mobile, there's less, and I want to kind of make sure that things are well spaced out, but we're not going over the top. And so that's just what I'm doing here. I've got my text. I probably don't need this spacer row, so I actually can just switch that off on mobile. I've got my stats. They're all looking pretty good, but again, just a little bit too much space, so I can shrink those down. Got my stats there. They're kind of looking pretty good. My donation stream, I could be a bit more generous with the size of. Got my chip in today. Oh, that's a bit of an overlap. So when I see something like this, I can see there's a negative margin that's been added there, and I'll just increase that. And then we've got why give to us at the end. So that's all looking pretty good. Now, if I look at my page again on mobile, now I'm opening developer tools. Don't be scared. This is just so I can show you how it looks on mobile on the actual website on an iPhone 6, 7, or 8. You can see that's looking pretty nice. I've got my kind of key messages up there. I've got my donation form nice high up on the page. I've got the total amount raised, our mission, everything looking pretty good here for a mobile site. Mobile is 70% of your visitors. So doing this step is really necessary. Okay, I am going to pause. This was the longest single section, so things will get a little bit easier from here, but I'm going to take some questions. I can see there's a few going in. If you want to pop it in open, in the Q&A section, that's great. Or if you want to raise your hand, if you want to ask, that's cool too. I'm going to keep it to about 5 minutes. If you need to grab a quick water, now's a good time. All right, so Margaret's asked, do these changes only affect the mobile view? Which is a good question. So Razorly sites are responsive, and I'm going to kind of illustrate that for you here. In that it's not two separate sites. So this is my desktop version of the site. And then as I shrink down the page, then I get down to my mobile version of the site. So it's actually all of the same content, but you can make mobile specific changes. So when I'm in this mobile view here, if I customize, say, the donation form, if I change these settings, because they're content settings, then it's going to change on all versions. However, this advanced tab, where I can see these 3 tabs, desktop, tablet, and mobile, these margin settings, or this kind of show or hide, only applies to mobile or only applies to tablet. So that's how I make customizations on mobile. Your website's the same, but you can kind of tweak content or even show and hide content on those different sites. All right. Rory's asked, do you advise to have 2 donation forms on a page rather than 1? The reason we have 2 donation forms on this page is to give people 2 opportunities to convert. So if I'm coming to this page from an email address, or maybe I'm really aligned with your cause and I don't need much convincing, then I need this up the top to make this really easy. If I don't see this there, I might find the page too hard and I'm going to bounce off that page. However, if I'm a new visitor, I do need to be convinced, then I'm probably going to be scrolling down this page here, understanding the story that I'm telling, and then I land at a donation form down the bottom. Of course, you could add more content to this page if you wanted to. We've got these call to actions right through the page to link us down. So that's the reason we have 2. We've got one at the top for people willing to convert straight away, and then we've got one at the bottom for people who need a little bit more convincing. Sam has asked, sometimes when people donate, they write really nice messages. Is it possible to display these on the page anyway? It is. You will. I'm just going to jump back to here where I actually have some sample donations. So this donation stream at the moment doesn't show them by default. It is possible to instead include a grid of donations, which will show those messages. And you'll see that as an option here when I can display them as a grid. Now, that obviously needs a bit of styling on this page because that gray doesn't work too well on the site, but that will actually show the message here, and I can have a grid of donations and I can tweak how that looks, and that looks really nice. I wouldn't put it here. I'd probably be putting, if I was doing a grid, I'd probably be putting it after the donation form, kind of maybe more around here. Might be a nicer spot for it. Katie's asked, if a donate button isn't centered on a desktop page, you can't center it on the mobile page, right? This is a good question for page building. So let's say I wanted this, for whatever reason, this button on the left. Actually, maybe a better example is the button at the top. So I wanted this button on the left on desktop, but then on mobile, I wanted it to be center aligned so that it kind of looks in the middle of the screen. Now that's not possible because of the content, but there is a workaround. The workaround is to make 2 versions of this button. So I'm copying the block, and see now I have 2 donation buttons. I'm going to make one of them centered and one of them left aligned. Now I have 2, obviously I don't want 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide my centered button on desktop by going to advanced, clicking on the desktop and switching off. I'm now going to hide my left align button on tablet and on mobile. And now what I have is when I go to my mobile view, I've got a center align button. And when I go to my desktop view, I have a left align button. So that's a really handy tip for all sorts of elements. When you do want something to look different on mobile, or you want a donation form somewhere else on mobile or on desktop, then you can do that. If I ever am like, oh, I can't find that button again, you can just click this little toggle and you'll see it there as a hidden element that isn't visible on desktop view, but is still on the page. These buttons can link anywhere. So if you want to link them to an external website, you just paste your link in here. Always include the HTTPS in front of it. I might take one more question, and then I'm going to keep powering through. Can you customize the donation form to look any different from Ramsey? You can. It is a little tricky at the moment. Generally, to customize the actual look and feel of the donation form, you do need to use CSS, which I can edit over here. So this is getting codey. It's a bit too technical for the session today, but we do have documentation on how all of this works over at developers.raisely.com. Go internet go. There are, just here, some different kind of themes that I can give my donation form if you've got a developer to help. So you can kind of choose your different color combinations. You can do all those kinds of things here and include this in your style. So if you are a bit tech savvy, then this is kind of what we've got at the moment, but it is part of the product we want to improve. Okay, I am now going to talk about personalization. Part 2, looking at the clock. All right. So we've built a landing page now. The next step is that we want to personalize it. Why do we personalize it? And I hope you enjoy this lovely drawing piece of art. Maybe I'll sell it as an NFT. I'm a donor to your organization. You know about me. You know a little bit about the history of my gifts to you. You understand my name at the very least, my email address. And what we can do is, in order to ensure a high converting landing page, we want to personalize that page end to end. Personalization kind of at a basic level is that if I am sending an email to my supporter list, then I probably want to have a different page to if I'm sending an email or reaching out to a colder list, say like on Facebook. Part of personalization is also targeting my content appropriately. So if I am going out on Facebook with a youth empowerment message, and then I'm going to my email list with a crisis accommodation message, then I want to make sure that my landing page has different content based on those audiences. So that's step 1 with personalization. And I'm sure that's stuff that we're all used to doing kind of day to day. Step 2 is actually personalizing things to the individual, where I have obviously a personalized email that looks at flags on my account or my giving history or whether I'm a regular donor to customize that message so it's relevant to me. Part 2 is that I have a personalized page. Part 3 is that I'm pre-filling the form fields. Now, I'm going to do this in this campaign. The really easy part of personalization to start with, I'm just going to make sure I save my changes. I'm going to jump out of this, is that if I want different versions of this page that I've just created, say I want one for focusing on youth leadership, another one focusing on crisis accommodation, then I just click add page and I clone it. So I clone my home page. And then I can, give it a /URL like crisis. I can create that page, and already I've got, a version of my homepage that I can customize. And I can, change my key message. I can do A/B tests. I can do all of that kind of good stuff. I'm going to leave that there. So I can have as many versions of this landing page as I want to. Well, what if I actually want to personalize things more? And what if I want to have a personalized email address and I want to customize that page even more? There are 2 ways that Raisely supports personalization. Option 1 is where you use URL parameters. And you might have seen this if you're used to using UTMs or something like that, where I can pull in like my first name, my last name, and I will then show that on the page. We're not going to talk about this today. If you do want a bit more information on this, then you can search pre-fill form fields in our knowledge base at support.raisely.com, and there's an article there describing how to do it. Option 2 is using Raisely CRM, which is a bit more of an end-to-end option. It's a bit more flexible. We're going to do that today. All right. Let's dive in. Raisely CRM is found under the People tab. In my account, I have 2 people, but under the People tab, I have each donor, each person in my system has a profile. Every time someone donates to a Raisely campaign or signs up to fundraise, they'll get a record in the People tab inside, essentially, your CRM. If you import people, they can also show up here. So you might still have a CRM for your organization. You can use this as a backup to send these emails if you want to. That's totally fine. Inside this, I have custom fields. These custom fields I'll find under organization, custom fields, and then person. Raisely has some sensible defaults like first name, last name, email, phone number, and address, but then you can also create your own fields. I have chosen to create 2 fields here called donor segment and is regular giver. And these are just 2 kind of flags that I'm going to use to show you how to personalize your page today. Donor segment has 3 options: major, mid, and minor. Now, I might base this based on giving history. For example, if someone has given me $1,000 in the last year, then maybe they're a major donor. Give them 500, maybe they're mid. If they've given one donation of like $50, maybe they're a minor. If I use Razorly as my CRM, I would be able to create a segment based on their giving history to apply this segment to people. Or if you've got another CRM, then you probably can export this data and then import it to Razorly if you want to. And likewise, is regular giver is a checkbox. Do they regularly give? Yes or no? Really simple. So in preparing my personalization, I've got these fields along with basics like first name, last name, and email. And what I've done is I've created an import template here. Really simple Google Sheets, fake data, where I've got first name, last name, email, my donor segment, and is regular giver, true or false. And what I can do is I can obviously extract this from my CRM if I wanted to, and then I can import that into Razorly. I'm going to go to people, I'm going to press the import button here. I'm going to pick my CSV that I've just downloaded from Google Sheets, and then I map the fields. It's figured them out automatically because the names are the same, or I can unmatch and kind of map them up. I can then add a tag, call it the May appeal, and I can import those people, and they'll go in really quickly. What I'm able to do is actually make a segment of those people too. So I can look at just, if I had more people in my CRM, I can look at just people with the May appeal tag. I can save that and call it May appeal. So there's my 4 people. And you can see if I look at Adolfo, we've got his name, his email, his donor segment is mid, and he's not a regular giver. So that's all looking pretty good. Now, I've got my people in the system. Well, how do I actually personalize the page? So I'm going to go back into my campaigns. I'm going to go back into the page builder. And there's a few things that you can do here where things get a little bit fancy. The first thing is I might want to include my name in the appeal. So Tom, support you throughout the crisis. So when I land on the landing page, it knows who I am and it's speaking directly to me. To do that, I type hash, and I can search for the field I want, which in this case is user first name. And I put a comma in there, and that'll be a merge field in my page. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can customize the text based on, say, a donor segment in the page. And this is where I'm starting to kind of level up. And this looks a little bit codey, but if you've used merge fields or conditions in another email program, it's very similar. I might do something here like if. Now, this is my regular giver field. So user public is regular giver. How do I know that's what I type in? Well, I go to organization here. I go to custom fields. Oh, I might need to reload this page. Here we go. That's what I want to do. Is regular giver is the field ID, and it's a public field because private's not switched on. So then I could do different text for people who are a regular giver to those who aren't. Sorry for the cheesy copy. I can then do an else. Obviously, we don't want to ask our regular givers to become regular givers again, but we probably do want to ask people who aren't regular givers to do that. So you can see here, I've done an if, this field is checked, show this text, otherwise show this text. And I can put this right throughout my page. I can do this in emails. Sam has asked, what is the difference between a public and private field, which is a good question. Public fields are available on the page itself. Private fields are available just in your CRM. In this case, it actually doesn't matter too much whether it's public or private. But yeah, if you do want to customize the page, if it is public information, then public is a pretty good choice. Otherwise, you should always choose private. All right, so I've customized my name and I've pulled that in there. So that's the first step to personalization. What if I actually wanted to customize my dollar amounts based on my donor segment? To do that, I can come under settings, donation form. This is where I have my different dollar amounts. So I've got 4 here already, and I have 3 donor segments. Now, if you've come in here before in Razorly, this is a new feature launched this morning. So you're all getting an exclusive sneak look at this. But if I say this $28 handle is for my minus segment, then I can choose user donor segment is minor. And I could choose this for all of my smaller dollar handles. For example, so I've got 2 minor donation handles. Now that the intent of this feature is, of course, if you've got a major donor, let's say you've got donors who donate hundreds of dollars each time they donate, well, it's silly to ask them for $28 or $69. You want to be asking them for higher dollar amounts. So we can actually have 3 sets of dollar amounts based on those different segments that is asking an appropriate amount based on their past giving. And that's going to be really essential to making sure that our page is capturing as much value as possible. So I've got that there for minor. I could obviously do the same for major or mid. And so I can base this on any custom field. I can also base it on profiles in peer-to-peer campaigns, all those kinds of things. All right. So now I've set up my personalization on my page. Well, how do I actually send out a personalized email? To do that, I'm going to go to Messages in Razely. Messages is where I customize things like my receipts or my password resets, all of those kinds of things. I'm also going to send a manual email. Now, I did write an email before the webinar. As you can see, it pushed for time. So I'm going to create a new message here. I'm going to call it May Appeal Blast. And I'm just going to copy it from an existing message I wrote so that there's some text in there. I might call this Ask To now. Roy's asked, how do people get this customized information on the page? That will become apparent very shortly. All right, so I've got my ask, and I'm going to send this to my May Appeal audience segment. I then am able to set up my sender and my subject line. My subject is, you're going to make a difference for Annie today. And then I've got my email here to tell my story. So I've got a nice header in here, and I'm pulling in some merge fields into this actual email. And like on the page editor, when I'm in an email, I just type a hash, and then I can pick any merge field available to the email and insert that into my page. Now I've told a bit of a story here. I'm pulling in my name, and you'll also see that I've customized things in the same way that I did on the page in my email itself. So for example, use a private donor segment. I think this should be public now. Obviously I've changed things. Is major, thanks to your generous contributions over the last year. You know, I can actually customize this email text based on this information that I've uploaded to Razely. These Yes, I'll Donate buttons then have a special link. Campaign URL, then they include an access token. That access token is unique to each user that I've just imported into my Razely database. And this is what tells Razely who is viewing the page and to pre-fill their information properly. So I've got that all in there, ready to go. I've got my link there, all personalized. I've got my email. And what I would then do is send that out. Now, here's one I prepared earlier, where we have my email that I've sent, and I can actually click, yep, I'll donate. You can see it's given me a unique URL there. Tom, support you through this crisis. Your contribution makes a huge difference. And you can see I've got those customized dollar handles. I think I uploaded myself as a mid-segment donor. So I've got those final 2. And when I actually click through, it's automatically pre-filled my first name, my last name, my email address, all ready to go. So that's already a personalized page. We've only done limited stuff for now. Obviously, you can take this really far if you want to, but that kind of is all of the different pieces that we're personalizing on this page. All right. That is personalization. I am quickly running out of time. We do need to talk about matched giving. What I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly talk about matched giving, and then I'm going to stay on for questions. So I know some people probably need to go at the hour. I'm happy to kind of continue on 10 minutes after if there are people who want to stick around and have a chat and ask some questions. And I know there's plenty of coming through that I can answer as well. So I'm going to show matched giving really quickly, and then we're going to do that. You can see my skills for timing are great. Final thing on matched giving, which is really the final ingredient to a great giving day or an appeal, is that, well, maybe over that appeal, I have a matched giving period. Matched giving is when a major donor or a company matches donations made by your donors. It allows you to increase the urgency and impact for your donors, and also allows you to engage a major giver or a company with your appeal. This is from a webinar we did about the same time last year, where we did a case study on a campaign, found that mid-sized campaign raising 100 to 200K, ran a small match giving pool, and the matching resulted in a 1.5 times bump to donations over the matching period compared to the week prior. So matching does make a big difference. I can set up match giving in Razely under settings, match giving, and I can create a match giving period. I can give it an amount. Let's say we've got a major sponsor who's given us $10,000. And then I can say when this starts and when this ends. I can set up conditions. And I can also attribute the match donation. So if this was a corporate sponsor, I might actually say, thanks from Audi, for example. So I'm going to save that. And it's really as simple as that. It's going to confirm $10 becomes $10, which equals $20. I'm going to say, yep, that looks right. I then got my matching period set up on the page and it's got 6 days left and I can see how much has been used. Now that's great. Well, how actually do I promote this on my landing page? So here we're going to go back to our editor. And we can make some really simple changes. The dollar handles have disappeared because of my conditions, just to point that out. But for example, we've got so far we've raised. Well, what if we actually want to talk about how much we've matched so far? So I'm going to go at a different block here. And we actually have a block called a matched progress bar. So I'm going to replace this. I'm going to put this in here. Again, I'm going to make it large. So it looks the same, but it actually shows a different thing. And in this case, I can maybe say unlocked. Well, how much of our matching has been unlocked so far towards our $10,000 goal, for example. So I can show that. It's going to pull in the most recent giving period. And I can obviously do the same things I did before around that background color and the padding. I could then use this space to talk about match giving. So for example, double your impact. Matched instead of matched, there we go. So that's one great way to talk about my match giving. The other thing I could do is I could put a bar at the top of my page, right at the top here, and I could make that stand out by making it, let's say red. And I can talk about matching here. Go. I'm going to put that in the center. I'm going to make that bold. I'm going to make it white. I'm going to make it smaller. Final place I could put it is I could also put it down here at our final donation form. And I'm going to do that through a little icon. Icons are really easy to create. You can either get your designer to make one, or you could go to a site like Flat Icon and you can make one. So I've got this little neat graphic that one of our designers put together, where I can include that there. And I might just shrink that image a little bit because it's a bit big, just to illustrate that it is a match giving day. And some little changes like that can go a long way to actually advertising matching on your campaign. So I've got this nice bar at the top with a notice that I can read. I've got my $0 unlocked here. So far we've raised $0 unlocked. I've got my notice here about the matching. And if I go right to the end, I've got this kind of 2x here. I could even go as far as to change this text and this heading here to talk about matching. All right, that is hopefully all of the substantial content that I wanted to cover. I'm conscious of time. I'm happy to stay on for a little while to answer some questions. I can see there's a few in the Q&A, so I'll start to work through some of those live. If you do drop off, if you do need to head off on the hour, I did want to say a big thank you for coming along today. I hope this has been helpful. When you wrap up the meeting, I think if I've set it up correctly, you'll be redirected to a little survey form. It has like 5 questions. If you do have time to fill that out, that'd be fantastic. It really helps us understand kind of if me blabbing on for this for an hour has been helpful for you or not. Or feel free to send some feedback to me directly at tom@razely.com or to our team, support@razely.com. Really, really want to hear what you think of this. We want to know. This has been a bit of a different session for us, been a bit longer. We've been a bit more in depth, a bit more hands-on. So I'm really keen to know how you found it. So please send through that feedback. I will answer some questions though. So see you later. If you do have to drop off, please stay on if you do want to have a bit of a chat and go through these questions. All right. A few open questions. Is this condition for logged in users only in terms of the personalization? So what I've done is that access token that I clicked on in my email, this one here, that actually logs me into my Razely account. And so every time I come back to the page, it will automatically be personalized on that particular device that I clicked the access token on. If I viewed the page publicly, then yeah, it wouldn't be personalized, and that might be an issue. We can actually handle that. There's two ways to handle that. One of those would be to have a separate page. Like I showed you right kind of when I started talking about personalization, you could have a separate page, which is for personalized pages. Or I can also be fancy and I can use these if conditions. So instead of using the kind of my hash trick here with the merge field, I could say like if user first name, for example, Tom, and then otherwise I could just do nothing. So I can kind of add conditions to my page, but the easier way is probably just to create a separate page that is personalized, that you kind of assume that everyone visiting will be using one of your special access token links. If you do want to use our other technique of personalization, which is where I actually pull information in from the URL, that's really easy to do too. It's essentially query.fname. And then I would, on this page, do something like fname equals Bob. Of course, I didn't save it. So that's that kind of first method of personalization that I showed you, where you can actually pull stuff directly off the URL, like I am there. All right, which segment would first-time users go into by default? Those segments that I showed you were just ones that I made up. So it's really up to you. Often organizations classify their donors as mid, major, minor, or some kind of classification, whether or not they're a regular giver. You might have a segment to say not a donor, for example, which you might have as a separate dropdown, or you maybe bundle them with mid, minor. It depends on your email comms that are going out as to how you'd like to do that. It's flexible. These aren't like, those segments are not like a built-in thing. They're things that I customize. Does Razely have access to your CRM like other donation platforms? That is a good question. I'm not too sure. So Razely has a built-in CRM, and you can integrate Razely with your CRM. What I've just shown you there is that you can actually import data. So if you've got a CRM, say Salesforce, for example, you might export a segment of people from Salesforce and then upload them to Razely. That personalized URL, you can, if you don't want to send the email through Razely, you can download that access token in a report and send it through an existing email platform that you use if you want to. That's absolutely fine. But you'd probably just do that through exports and imports as opposed to a connection. Elise has asked, and if anyone does want to raise their hand, if they want to chat, that's cool too. Elise has asked, if you are setting up new fields like minor to minor donors, do you update your users manually on each record, or is there an easier way? There is an easier way. So if I was using Razely for my data, let's say I'd run a few appeals on Razely before and everything was here. And what I could actually do is I'd create a segment based on giving history. And so I could say, looking at the number of, I might look at the average donation amount. And so for my minor donors, I want to say everyone whose average donation amount is less than $50. That's going to look at their past giving history and find people with an average donation less than $50. I'm going to apply that. It's going to be everyone. No one. I don't have any donations in this account. Let's say that did work. I would then click all here. I'd bulk edit, and then I'd set their donor segment to minor, for example. If I wanted to do major, then maybe I'd do a similar thing, but I'd go above. So I might do the average donation amount. What am I doing? I don't need this. The average donation amount might be greater than $300, and that's my major segment of donors. So whatever those kind of boundaries are, you can actually figure this out within Razely and then bulk update that field for your personalization. If you're not using Razely as a CRM, maybe you do this inside your CRM and then export the report. All right, what else do we have? Can the customization features for a landing page and form be used from an external CRM, or only work using Razely as a CRM? It absolutely works from an external CRM. You don't need to use Razely CRMs to do these tricks. If you just export your people, say I've got my segment for my May appeal, one of the fields there is going to be a field called access token. And you just append that to the URL in the same way that I did in my example before. And you can send that email out from anywhere. It can be from MailChimp, Campaign Monitor, Salesforce, anything like that. All I'm doing is I'm importing these people to Razely so Razely knows who they are, so that when I send them their unique link, it can fill in their information automatically for you. So yes, you don't need to use Razely to do this. You can just link people to the appeal directly. If you don't want to import data into Razely, that's fine. You can just use this trick as well, which is where I can pull in information into the URL. If I could type, for example, and then that can kind of pull into the page if you want to as well. So that's always an option that you've got available to you if you don't want to do the full thing. Thanks for everyone who's sticking around. Got a few other questions here. What if people have cookies turned off on their web browser? Will the first name field show? Yes, it will. So if I click on this link, it actually doesn't use cookies for the first version of the page. Most people generally have cookies switched on, but that'll be fine. Even if they have an ad blocker or whatever, it'll still show their name and details on the page. If they do have cookies switched off and they reload the page, then it probably wouldn't work. And you can have fallbacks for that if you want. But yeah, no, generally cookies isn't an issue. What happens if someone we don't know visits the page? Hopefully I've kind of covered that one as well. That's kind of been asked a few times. So I might actually have different versions of this page. So I might have a version of this page, which is like EDM or something like that, which is directed to from my email where my donors are known. And then I could just have a basic version of the page without the personalization, which is where I direct Facebook people to or general promotions to or anything like that. If you do want to combine it all, then yeah, you've got those conditions that I showed you, like if username, Tom, otherwise don't show that text there. So there's always ways to kind of do fallbacks. You're kind of just thinking in logic. So if the name exists, then do this, otherwise do this. And you can all put that all on the page. There are some support articles that we have. They're kind of related to emails, but it's actually the same. Where we kind of show you how you can do those conditions of if and equals and those kinds of things. Ramsey's asked one more question. Tom mentioned a website to make icons. Our top recommendation for icon websites is a site called flaticon.com. It makes us look good. It'll make you look good too. It's a great site for free icons, and you can search for all sorts of things. And you get little kind of fun icons that you can use across your site. That's a good little tip. All right. Still got a few people online. Are there any other questions that I can answer? Feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to be unmuted and have a chat. Otherwise, keep going. Oh, yeah. So we've got Virginia. You can ask your question if you like. Gives me a chance to have a breather. You just need to unmute yourself. It's all right. Virginia, if you're there, you can feel free to ask your question while you're unmuting. I'm happy to.
Oh, sorry.
I
didn't mean to raise my hand. I was just going to type in the question.
Oh, that's okay.
But now that I'm here,
yeah.
I'm an older person. I don't follow technology that quickly. We're a new charity. Are you, by any chance, sending out a recording of this, or is it possible to review it at a slower pace where I can follow?
Yes, I know I went very fast, didn't I?
That's okay. I know you have to. Thanks.
Yeah, we have recorded it, so I'll send a recording out afterwards.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, no trouble. Were there any other questions for anyone who's still online? I think we might be wrapped up, which is fantastic. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for coming along. Really appreciate your time this morning. Yeah, it's been great to have you all here. When you do wrap up the webinar, hopefully you get redirected to a survey. Please let me know what you think. If you don't, just flick me an email. That'd be awesome. Would really love to know how you found the session. And any other questions about setting up these landing pages, these appeals, just contact us, support@raisley.com. We're more than happy to help. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your Tuesday.